To start off with, tell me a bit about your family and how it came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. My family, we had some infertility issues when we were first married, and we started going down the path to adopt in the US. And then I got pregnant. And then I got pregnant again. So I had two biological boys who are now 23 and 24. And then we always just kind of felt like we should adopt, that we were still called to do that. So every couple of years we'd research something. Finally, we both felt it at the same time. And so we researched and adopted two children internationally, and they were 2 and 3 at the time, so boy and girl. My biological boys are now 23 and 24, and my adopted kids are now 15 and 16.
Okay. All right. And how did it go at first when you first?
Nope, gosh. That's hilarious. It's, mass chaos.
Mhm.
That pretty much sums up the entire time is mass chaos.
And did they have, when they arrived with you, did they have diagnoses of any sort?
No, because they're young, they were young, and I remember, we were so excited. We were like, "Oh, yay, they're really young, so, we get to really mold them and, and they shouldn't have any issues with attachment, etcetera." And, yeah, no, they definitely did.
What did you know about their background?
All we were told was that, and this was by the orphanage director, as our kids were climbing all over her furniture, she briefly said, the grandmother came to visit them a couple of times, but the mom never came to visit them, and that they were taken by police protection.
Okay.
And that our daughter, who at the time, when the police took her, she was 8 months old and she weighed only 8 pounds.
Mhm.
So they were starved and abused.
Wow. Right. And how did you first come to hear about reactive attachment disorder or learn about it?
Oh my gosh. Like I said, it was complete chaos. And I think any adopted parent, can relate with this. Like a portion of your brain at that point starts to just constantly look for solutions, what's going to help these kids, what's going on, and so I was almost every day scouring the internet trying to find solutions or something, that would give us hope. And one day I ran across a video, and it was Amy from Red Advocates, and as she was talking, I, like, stopped, like, everything else I was doing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is our life. This is exactly, what we're going through." Cameras in the house, mass chaos all the time, behaviors, and finally, for the first time, like, I felt seen and heard, so it was, yeah, that's what happened. And then so at that point, I set up an appointment with Rad Advocates, also set up an appointment with a local mental health provider, and they did diagnose my son with Rad. And at the time, we really thought our son was the major problem, or the most challenging one, I should say. Later on, we found out it was really my daughter. She was really, really good at manipulation.
And how old were the kids when you found that Rad Advocates video?
My son was 6 years old and my daughter, was 5.
Okay. And, did your daughter also then eventually get the diagnosis as well, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what kind of behaviors were you dealing with?
Lying, stealing, main ones, physical abuse. My son was starting to attack me when he would have fits of rage. Our daughter was a lot more sneaky. She would, she would start to smear fecal matter on our toothbrushes and our doorknobs and all over our house. And We would go to use our toothbrush and we'd be like, oh, wait a minute. After we used it, it wasn't over there.
Oh, man.
And then we would start to freak out. So, yeah, so we lived with our doors locked, our bedroom doors locked all the time. Vandalism, it was a regular occurrence at our house, using the bathroom and our vents and our closets. Um, Animal abuse. We had to get rid of their rabbit, and our dog was scared to death of them. And finding knives, death threats, self harm, and harming others by accident. And I put that in quotations because that was always how they would say, "Oh, I didn't know,"
Right.
or "It was an accident." And we knew as parents, like after a while, we were like, "Oh my gosh, these are not accidents. They really did want to hurt that child." So, yeah, so it was really scary. And again, just our son was more in your face, like he would rage. Our daughter was more, I'm going to get even with you if because I don't like something. Very, very sneaky and incredibly manipulative.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was the toll that was taking on your family in terms of you and your husband and your other two children?
It still to this day hurts us so much because our biological kids at the time were 11 and 12, and um, they pretty much just resorted to their rooms, and they, kept their doors locked, and they, sucked into computer stuff. And, we've really missed a lot of time with them. They had a lot of anger issues. My one son, and I couldn't figure out why. And later on, I'm like, well, that's no kidding because our life really was constantly, we were just barely surviving because it was constant chaos and constant playing Sherlock Holmes. Like, my husband is so, I tell people it's so funny. I mean, I'm a salesperson and I, for a living, read people, and what their needs are and that sort of thing. And my husband's a professor in human resources. And so, both of us, we think we're very, very good and skilled at reading people. And we would literally, even at 2 and 3, we would have to go in another room and we would negotiate and go through all the evidence for literally hours to try and figure out whether or not they were telling the truth.
Yeah.
So later, their lies were not as good. They just got a little lazier, I guess. But yeah, it was just it. We felt like detectives all the time.
Mhm.
And then, of course, that put strain on our marriage because our son was more my our daughter would instigate things and then, and she was witty and funny and is witty and funny, and our son was more angry, and in your face. So, it was tough. He honestly wasn't as likable, and so, it caused a lot of strain on our marriage as well.
Yeah.
So,
And how did things change once you found rat advocates? How were they able to help you?
oh, wow. So when I found Red Advocates, and that was in 2021,
Mhm.
I went to, I watched the video and I was like, again, this is our life. And my husband, I showed him. And he was at this point very skeptical because I was constantly finding some new solution that's going to
Mhm.
help them. And he's like, even with like our therapist, he had said, Sherry, these kids they don't want to change. And he said, it's like we're wadding up money and throwing it out the car door, and just out the window. And, and I actually said that to our kid's therapist. And she goes, yeah, she goes, "He's absolutely right." She said, "Because they don't have any desire whatsoever to change." And, so anyway, so I finally convinced him to, he watched a couple of videos and such of Red Advocates and looked on their website, and then he was like, "Okay, well, maybe we will check this one out. So we'll do one more." So we ended up, going to the, conference in Denver, Colorado, and, oh my gosh, it was life changing. It really was life changing. For the first time, Um, People believed us. Um, there were other people in the same shoes as us. And then, the tools that they talked about. And, our biggest question was, are we just hitting a brick wall here, or are we ever going to get through to these kids? Like, is there any hope for change? Can they change? We
Yeah.
don't know. And we didn't know how severe they were at that point. So we did like the RADQ, which is always part of NABRAD, RADQ score sheet, and had others fill it out. And they were both, very, very high, off the charts, over 100. So we were like, okay, now we know why our life's so chaotic. Um, at the time, I was still very, very hopeful that, that we could get through to them. And my husband was like, they're going to kill us,
Mm.
or something's going to happen. And, it's just, I see the writing on the wall, and this is not going to be good. So I remember Force Lean got up and spoke, and we were like, oh my gosh, we have to hire him. So literally, we chased him out of the room at break and said, we're hiring you. You need to evaluate our kids.
Nice. Well, I definitely want to circle back and talk more about the conference. But kind of changing gears here a little bit. When did you get your cancer diagnosis during all this?
The cancer diagnosis came after the kids left the house, and just to kind of get you up to speed on that, we, our daughter, like, we were literally living on separate floors. We were in and out of the local mental health facilities. And they would only keep them for a week because the insurance wouldn't pay. And then, even the nurses at the facilities were like, "Yeah, this kid is gonna hurt you. I hate to send him home, but I can't. Insurance won't pay. You have to come get them." So, and the kids, know the game, and know what they need to say and do in order to be able to go home. So they would come home, and but anyway, at one point I was like, we had to have them living on separate floors. They couldn't be on the same floor at the same time because they're biologically related, and they were threatening each other with knives to do sexual things with each other. So we had talks of, are we going to have an incestuous child here? I mean, and so we couldn't leave them alone at all, ever. And then even when my husband and I would try to go out somewhere, and our older boys, at this point, were in their 20s, would watch them, and they would call us and say, that the bedroom just got vandalized. The bed is out in the middle of the hallway, the dog's hurt, whatever, So it was a constant thing, and no breaks. And facilities wouldn't keep them. So what happened was, I was like, we can't live like this anymore. Every time I was trying to work because insurance doesn't pay for a lot of the medical needs of these kids. So the doctors, all the psychologists, all the, therapists, all of that was out of pocket. So I was working, and it would be on a conference call and a WebEx meeting, and I would hear my daughter sneaking down the back stairs, to start harassing her brother or do other things. And we had cameras all over the house, but obviously you can't have cameras everywhere. So they would find a spot where there was not a camera, and bad things would happen. So
And were you
yeah.
working with rad advocates at that time that all this was happening?
Um At that time, we had several consultation calls with them, and yes, I was on I would join. They would have meetings every once in a while, and I would join those. So we were still trying to make things work, because this was 10 years after we adopted. I mean, it was chaotic the whole time, but when they hit puberty, it was unlivable.
Yeah.
It really was. It was horrible. um, death threats and different things like that. So yeah, so at that point, I called around myself. We were in a wraparound program, the mental health providers are always trying to help. And we had actually self-reported to CPS because, there were things going on in the home and we were like, we need somebody to help us. And we didn't know, who all that would be. We knew we weren't as engaged with Rat Advocates at that time. It was before the conference. And yeah, so we had called CPS and then they put us in wraparound programs, and all that did was make our daughter really angry because we would all sit around and talk about what she did and how, she could be better and what's our safety plan. And so I talked to them and I said, we can't live like this anymore. And what can I do? And she's like, well, I heard of residential treatment facilities. I'm like, could we get her in a residential treatment facility? And she's like, well, if you can find one to take her, they're all full. But if you can find one to take her, we can work that out. So I said, okay. So I made a spreadsheet and I called 200 different facilities all over the region, found out it had to be in our state that she had to stay. And I finally found one who said, you know what, we just got an opening, but you have to have Medicare and Medicaid. I'm sorry, Medicaid. And I said, okay, or chin funding or something like that. So I said, okay, well, the facility told me, or the wraparound person told me that we could do this. So we took her up there and she's like, that's fine. We'll use, regular insurance, commercial for the first bit, and then we'll switch over. Um, that was on a Friday. On Monday, after we dropped her off, and so Thursday was when they said they'd take her. Friday, we drove her up there. Monday, we got a call from the wraparound person, and she's like, you're not going to get funding. Oh, she was like, what the heck are we supposed to do? So we had a call with the director of the chin funding. And, she was like, yep, I know, I understand your problem. I'm really sorry, but that's, we can't help you. We're not going to fund it. So she stayed there and our insurance was incredible and stayed there for 6 months, which is really a long time for commercial insurance. And we knew through Rat Advocates that eventually they would say, she doesn't have funding, it's not approved, and you need to come get her. And then it would be a day's notice. And that's exactly what happened. So they called, said, you have to come pick her up tomorrow. She's getting kicked out of the program because she's disrupting the whole facility. And the other kids getting better and all this stuff. And she's dangerous. And I'm like, oh, great. And I said, is she done with her treatment? And they said, no. And I said, well, then we're not going to come get her. So of course that led to the whole process, horrific process of CPS saying, okay, well now, you've abandoned your child. So I said, in order to keep her safe, which is what we're doing. And for us to, keep a safe space for our son, which later on we found out that she was mostly the perpetrator in the situation. And you want us to just bring her home and we're trying to protect her and you're going to charge us with abandonment. So we had to fight in court. And that's when we really hired Amy to be a part of that team, Amy and Heather. And Amy was amazing. She worked with the attorney. She worked with our CASA worker, my daughter's CASA worker. She worked with with CPS. She would join the team calls that they would have with the with the RTC. So at that point, we decided to relinquish because that was the only way to keep her there. And CPS actually to force their hand to make them keep her because she wasn't safe. She was trying self-harm. She had cuts up and down her arms, both arms. And most of them were from her fingernails, where she would dig them into her skin. She was trying to harm other kids as well. She would break the light bulb in the shower and try to cut herself. So she was just not in any position to be. with us and here at home.
Mhm. So that was the end of that chapter, and then what happened with your son?
So our son, we were really, really hopeful that once she was out of the house, that we could work with him some more and he would calm down because, again, she was the instigator in most of those situations. Unfortunately, it didn't work. And he, one day I would ask him to empty the dishwasher and he would be like, okay, mom, that was his chore. We had not natural consequences, for anything that he did wrong. And then, the next day I would say, hey, it's, time to empty the dishwasher. And he would get angry and he would start to attack me. So, we had to call the police. He was on his third probation. Um, and the, at at one point, we had 6 police officers here chasing him down because he was trying to beat us with a pipe and, a couple of things, and, so then we called the police, and the police came, and he ran off, and so for an hour, there were 6 police officers and police cars in our driveway, and they were chasing him, all over our property trying to find him, and finally, he shows up, and, they handcuff him, and they, say, "We're gonna go, put him in juvie for the night," and, so they're putting him in the car. He goes, "How long are you gonna keep me?" And they go, "Well, I don't know. That really depends on you." And my husband and I are over there sobbing, because it's just such a traumatic event, and so devastating, um, after all the how hard you try to help them. And, the police officer, I will never forget, I wish so badly I knew who he was, but he looked at us and he goes, "This is not your fault." And at that point, I mean really started crying because nobody ever says that to you when you're
Right.
a parent of a rat kid.
Right. 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 I remember a police officer telling us, "Well, have you tried taking his privileges away?"
Yeah, right. I know. It's like, yep, done that, done that, done that, done that. So fast forward a little bit more. So I remember we even when we took him out of the we went to pick him up at from juvie and he had spent the night in juvie. And of course he vandalized everything. So he had broken his glasses purposely when he was having his fit of rage the day before. And we went thinking, oh, please let this have scared him a little bit. And anyway, we're walking down the steps after, leaving juvie, and he goes, "When are you going to buy me new glasses?" And we were like, and then he's like, "Can we go do something fun? Can we go get ice cream?" And I'm like, "What? Like, we just picked you up from juvie."
Yeah.
So anyway, so fast forward, so we still tried to work with him, and we worked with him so much that he finally stopped lying to us constantly. Like he would lie, try to lie, and then we would be like, "Come on." And then he would say, "Okay, yeah, no, no, that's not the truth. This is the truth." So I asked him one time, I said, "If you had a weapon when you were in one of these fits of rage," I said, "would you use it on me?" And he goes, real matter of fact, "Absolutely. Sure, I would." And I go, that means you can't live here, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I know."
Mhm.
So so he had attacked me one more time and we were like, "Okay, are we gonna," we looked at him and we said, because we were already talking with rat advocates about, maybe a boarding school of some sort, to help with the rat where he could really focus and he could have 24/7 care. We didn't want to go the route of an RTC because that didn't help our daughter. So, and it was such a fight. And I'm like, I don't have it in me to go to court and all this crazy stuff again. So I said, we looked at him and we said, you can, or we looked at him and we said to our son, "You can either go to juvie or we can call the police and you can go to juvie again. Or you can go to a boarding school that specializes in reactive attachment disorder, childhood trauma." And he goes, "I'll go to the boarding school." We applied and got accepted and he's been there ever since, which has been roughly 2 years now.
Okay, and how has that worked out?
Um, it seems like he's different, that he's improving a little. I'm not as worried about him killing somebody at this point. The first year and a half, he was attacking staff and, different things like that. But they have a really good staff ratio to kids. So he's not as bad now. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm always hopeful that he's doing better, but I also know that if he was out there, without constant supervision, his choices may not be as good as they are in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then you dealt with all that, and then when did the cancer diagnosis happen?
So, it was about a year after, not it probably wasn't even a year after he, was in the school that I got the cancer diagnosis. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Nicole mentioned that you've compared it and said in some ways, raising a child with reactive disorder is even more difficult to deal with. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, with that, yeah, that was what was so incredibly eye-opening to me. With RAD, first of all, if I had cancer and went through, because I had two the most severe cancers you can have, most aggressive,
Mhm.
breast cancer, and it was bilateral breast cancer. So, very, very unique, situation. If the kids were here, I couldn't have, there's no way I could have done it. But with RAD, there's so much judgment. There is so much, you could have, would have, should have done this if you just did it right. Even from the people who are on your care team. I mean, they're just, like you said earlier, it's like, have you tried this?
Mhm.
Yes, of course I did. So, but I mean, even judgment, I mean, they're good intentioned people, even mental health providers. Everybody had really good intentions, but these kids are so good at manipulation, so good at showing a different side to other people, than they do in the home. In the home, there was no safe space. We were worried about our lives. We locked our doors at night. My son, even my biological son, even to this day, still has to lock the bedroom doors and such because he just gets so freaked out. And scared. So he's working through that. And then when we removed the kids from the home, we got ugly letters, we got a lot of judgment, a lot of people talking behind our back. We lost our best friends, at that point because they were, thought we were wrong. um, or, here I was sitting here grieving my kids that we had raised for 10 years.
Mhm.
So even though they didn't attach, I did.
Yeah. Right.
We did. So we're grieving all of the, and it was terrifying living with them, I will say that, but we still love them. And we would tell them that often. And we're sitting here in this vandalized home, um, grieving the loss of our kids, getting ugly hate mail and people saying, if you just would have did it this way, making us feel like it was our fault and we were failures. Um, so rad in that way, it was just so horrific. We felt so alone. And to give you some context, I received one card and I received one meal from a friend who also was, a parent of a special needs child, after they left. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
Um, and it took me a long time, at least 6 months, with the cancer diagnosis. And I always joke, always said this, and I still do to this day. I'm like, I'm a rad mom. I can handle anything. It's like I am not afraid of anything other than rad. So when I got the cancer diagnosis, I was like, okay. But with the cancer diagnosis, the tons of support. I mean, unbelievable support. I had a 6-month food train meal train where people were bringing me food twice a week. I had over 300 cards in the mail that were mailed to me. Social media, I would make a post, just an update on my health and where I was. And I would receive at least, hundreds of comments just encouraging me to keep fighting. And people were checking on me every day. I didn't one single time have somebody look at me and go, Cherie, this is your fault.
Right.
And that was the biggest difference. Um, so again, I want so badly to have awareness for these parents who are grieving and going through all of this and fighting. In fact, just today, this morning, I was thinking about this call and interview, and I had a friend reach out to me and said, I am just so tired of being judged. I just de-escalated my son and all I get is judgment and people telling me I'm doing things wrong. I'm such a failure.
Yeah. Totally.
And I'm knowing what.
Yeah. What can be
Terrible.
learned about the reaction or about how people react to something like a cancer diagnosis versus how they react to what a family's going through when they're dealing with something like reactive attachment disorder? What can be learned, or what would you like the public to hear
Oh
from?
gosh.
Yeah.
I wish they would believe us.
Mhm.
I wish they would believe us. We know our kids. We know our kids so well. I mean, we didn't go into, and I know it's not only adopted kids, but um many are. And, we didn't go into adopting kids to be a bad parent or to be mean to them or whatever. This is, I mean, some kids just cannot receive that love.
Mm.
And that is the thing that I would want them to know, to believe and support the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And how is your health now?
Good. So I finished my last treatment about 3 weeks ago now. Yeah,
Awesome.
so
Congratulations.
so excited, and yeah, after 4 surgeries, I'm having another one next week. There's no sign of the cancers,
Yeah.
thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. And I know through
thank.
all of this, you've been involved with Rat Advocates and you and your husband have both kind of taken leadership roles. What motivated you to do that, especially while you're dealing with all this personal struggle?
Um, I don't want anybody to feel alone like I did. I don't want them to grieve alone.
Yeah.
Um, I want awareness because the situation is just horrific, and can be horrific. I want them to know that there's hope if there is hope. I mean, not all rad diagnoses are as severe as our kids. And if they go to a conference with people who actually understand this, and that is what makes Red Advocates so amazing, is the founders have lived through this, and they know this in and out, and can really help coach you on where you are in the journey, and and where the kids are in the journey. So there can be hope out there, and not all kids have to leave the home like ours did. And I hope that that's the case where I we can contribute some to that. And going to the first Red Advocates conference, the NAVRAD conference, I mean, it literally changed our lives. It gave us our life back. They our life was a chaotic mess, headed a train wreck. I literally, and I remember one day, I mean, it was so hard and so exhausting. I remember driving over a railroad track in the railroad tracks, and I thought, "Maybe a train will hit me today." I mean, I wasn't suicidal, I am an incredibly optimistic person, but I was just so exhausted and tired, and I'm like, "If the kids do beat me up and I end up in the hospital, hey, at least I'll get some rest and I'll be safe."
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's how hard it can be. So that's what I want people to get out of this is it's real.
Yeah. And I understand you've become kind of a fixture at the NAVRAD conference and welcoming people. So tell me why that's a particular thing you're really passionate about.
Oh, well, yeah, I was so excited when Amy and Heather asked me to be the connection liaison. And I just had this conversation with another friend of mine who had a situation that somebody was being really kind to them, and she's like, "I just don't understand why I'm so skeptical." Like, she said, why do I not believe her? Why am I worried?" And I said, "Because we've lived through what we've lived through. All of the skepticism that we have been through and the judgment has made us kind of pessimistic, where we used to be optimistic, and we don't trust people like we used to. But that's what makes that NAVRAD conference so fantastic is I want these, and this is what happened at our last conference. I set up some different things and events, and so parents could connect with one another because I remember the first couple that I went to, most people sat at the table quiet, like scared to death to talk, scared to death to admit anything. And so I really wanted them to open up and talk to each other because they're your support. They are your lifeline. They will probably be lifelong friends because they get it. They understand and they will not judge you at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what I'm very, very passionate about. I want people to sit there and say, somebody finally gets it. Finally, there's professionals who understand us and what we're going through. And finally, there's resources to help us. And finally, there's people who believe in us and believes what we're saying.
Yeah. What would you like the future to look like for families dealing with, children with developmental trauma?
If I could harness the support that you have with breast cancer
Mhm.
and the awareness that you have with breast cancer, where you can tell somebody you have it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." Um, and bring that to mental health, to parents who, because there are some supports for kids and, CPS, mental health professionals, they're all there trying to help the kids. Where's the help for parents? I mean, where's the parent abuse? You know? These kids make false allegations at the drop of a hat, and it doesn't bother them one single bit, and can totally train wreck your life. And so there's all kinds of protection for them, but not for the parents. And that again is what makes rad advocates so incredibly valuable and why I wanted to be a part of this and really give back because it's the first group that we ever encountered that fought for us as parents.
Yeah. Awesome. Totally agree. Let's
Yeah.
see. I think those were kind of my bullet point questions, but what else would you like to talk about or ask?
I was thinking about this earlier and there's really four main points and I wrote them down in case I got off on a tangent, which happens with me quite often. But I wrote them down. These are the four main points that I want anybody who is struggling with this and the general public to know. Number one, if you're in this situation, you are not alone. There are others out here in this situation who understand you and you can trust us and we can be a support for you because we're a little farther along in the journey and rad advocates can be an amazing support. Join the team, join the groups. They do different trainings and webinars and different things like that. Don't wait, run. Run to get some help. Number two, I want the general public to know that these parents know their kids better than anybody else. Stop judging us and start supporting us and believing us. again, we didn't adopt these kids or, get into this situation to be mean to our kids. We're not taking them to a million therapy sessions and spending all of our extra money to try and get them healthy and get them help and running them to appointment after appointment after appointment because we don't care or because we want to be mean. We're trying desperately, desperately with everything in us to help these kids to get better and to be able to attach. The third thing, awareness, again, talking about comparing this to an illness, a chronic illness. Um, there's there's so much more support out there and understanding. Even with work. I worked through that whole trauma trying to keep them on separate floors and all these appointments, constantly juggling, constantly exhausted, couldn't remember things, messed up presentations at work because my brain was sucked out of me and I was just worried about my life and like listening constantly for where my kids were in the house. So awareness, and that's what again makes Rad Advocate such a unique resource and a valued resource. And then the fourth thing, take care of yourself. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't take breaks. I didn't feel like I could. Um, so I pushed myself so much. In fact, my husband actually went into depression and hid himself in the man cave in the basement. And I was constantly trying to pull the kids away from my other kids and my husband just and other people and keep them in a bubble so that they wouldn't hurt anybody and our family could stay together. It just took its toll on me. And I truly believe those stress hormones constantly hitting me, hitting my body just has contributed to my cancer. That's my true gut feeling. And I'm on uh, I joined a dragon boat racing team, and I bring that up because it's a group of breast cancer survivors. And on a team of like 40 people, there are three of us who I didn't know before, but have been through this
Wow.
situation, not just cancer, but dealing with children with mental health needs like that. And so I do believe that it contributes. And the thing is, if you, I I know it seems impossible to find some help in some place to take your kids, and it really is. Again, awareness, I would love for there to be a camp or different things like that. And there's wilderness camps, but they're like $50,000 for a week. I mean, who can afford that? People are literally remortgaging their houses to try and stay safe and to help their kids. And if you can help out and watch these kids, they usually are not as bad for strangers or when they're outside the home, to give parents a break. Because you absolutely need to take a break,
Yeah.
because it will affect your health. And I was thinking about this as well. Myself, my husband, and both of my kids, my biological kids, all of us were in the ER with health problems
Mhm.
that last year when the kids were both of the Brad kids were in our home.
Yeah. Yeah. Stress absolutely
Yeah.
affects your physical health. Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course.
So thank you for letting me tell my story, and I hope and pray that it is some sort of comfort and help for others out there who are struggling.